On December 3rd, 2016, Team EnVyUs became one of the only teams in esports history to ever win an international competition on South Korean soil. And that was all thanks to the smile of EnVyUs and Thailand's own Mickie. However, what does that legendary Western Overwatch stable look like if Mickie never joined the team? To start, we have to look at his unsuspecting history within competitive gaming. At the age of 14, Mickie traveled to South Korea to compete in a rhythm game called Audition, after qualifying as second in his homeland of Thailand. Years later, Mickie would cement a name for himself in a first-person shooter called Point Blank, before transitioning into Overwatch sometime in 2016. Cut to OGN's Overwatch Apex League, where Team EnVyUs is in desperate need of someone to step in after losing longtime DPS star Tailspin to, well, let's just say creative differences. Mickie was scouted after the 2016 Overwatch World Cup, where he and Thailand placed 9 to 12. And credited with this foresight was the late, great EnVyUs main support, Internet Hulk. He was said to have picked him out of the crowd of applicants solely based on his overwhelming positive attitude and great skill at that year's World Cup, and the rest was history. As underdogs, EnVyUs, along with their newly found happy-go-lucky D.Va player, would advance through the playoff bracket and not only win Apex Season 1, but also reign triumphant at the following MLG Vegas event, held 2 weeks after their win at Apex. Mickie in many ways saved Team EnVyUs in one of their darkest times. It's undoubtable that he played a huge role with the team, so much so that I'd be willing to say that without Mickie, EnVyUs would not have won Apex Season 1. As they scrambled to fill in Tailspin's large shoes, they would have either had to have their manager or coach step into play, or they would have had to fly in someone from either the Australian or Pacific region as an emergency substitute. Something interesting to note is that Tailspin's departure was known behind the scenes before the public really knew what was going on with the team. AKM even hinted that he knew about the roster troubles in the group draws, as Rogue shockingly chose EnVyUs as their first round opponent in Apex Season 1's playoffs.
So you still had a choice. You could have chosen Africa Freaks Blue. You could have chosen a Korean team. Why did you pick EnVyUs? Why did you pick EnVyUs?
Because I know they have a lot of problems with practicing recently, and they have to play on Monday, so it's more practice for us to learn the new meta, and it's all to have an advantage because I know they have some visa problems and they can't really practice nowadays.
Now we get to the fun part, the topic of the hour. What actually happens to EnVyUs if Mickie isn't picked up? What does this team even look like going into the Overwatch League as the Dallas Fuel? Well, let's set the groundwork for a moment. Let's play in the assumption that EnVyUs lose to Rogue in the quarterfinals during Apex Season 1. This more than likely puts Rogue leading the charge into the grand finals against Africa Freaks Blue and becoming the eventual champions of Apex Season 1. Now, as for EnVyUs, I think they regroup and compete at MLG Vegas and perhaps even Apex Season 2, but depending on their success, there's a good chance that they won't even go to Apex Season 3 in this timeline. This means Effect wouldn't get added to the roster and more than likely go elsewhere. I refer to Mickie as the team's smile for a good reason. His positivity and locker room generalship had gotten EnVyUs through some dark places, and without him, I think the team would not look the same going into the Overwatch League era. This could trigger an earlier team rebuild, which could result in a much earlier retirement for some, or could cause possible problems to flare up, causing certain players to be removed. In this instance, I think Taimu was probably the first to go, due to personal struggles and internal team conflicts. And as for Internet Hulk, he seemed interested in moving into coaching and team management either way, so I doubt this changes in this scenario. This leaves us with Chips Hyen, Coco, and Harry Hook to hold down the fort. Now, without Mickie and having opted out of Apex Season 3, this means that come time for Overwatch Contender Season 0, EnVyUs might have had a solid hold on the North American player base. Sidebar for a moment. When backed into a corner, Hastro, the CEO and owner of EnVyUs, doesn't mind spending money to find talent. Just like his movement in the 2019 postseason, I think this timeline could paint him in a similar situation. He sat on a brand that's being reviewed for the upcoming Overwatch League, and he needs to rebuild his team in time for the first introduction of Overwatch contenders. This is big. So, let's take a smattering of some of the best talent available that would have been going into Overwatch Contender Season 0 and play general manager for a moment. First off, Hastro and EnVyUs are no strangers to South Korean talent. With former StarCraft 2 player Violet under the brand, Hastro and company would roughly know what they were getting into. That said, at this point, Selfless Gaming, a rookie team on the rise, probably did not have star DPS player Carpe under a heavy contract. So I think he's a good shout, due to the possibility that EnVyUs would have seen his skill with their time in Korea. Moving to another DPS, I think Seagull is another given because, well, you know, he's Seagull. He's a fantastic player overall, has huge branding, and I don't see this acquisition going any different. And if anything, I think he probably stays with the team a little bit longer in the Overwatch League than he does within our timeline. Now we have to look at another rookie team for a moment, Arc 6. With this rookie team on the rise, I have a feeling that EnVyUs would have made a play for players like Dante and Space, as they were gems on this green team, and more than likely commanded a very, very low buyout. So heading into Contender Season 0, EnVyUs could have looked like this: Coco on main tank, Space on flex, Dante, Seagull, and Carpe on DPS, and Harry Hook and Chips High on support. Now, would they win Contender Season 0? I have a feeling that they would, but things look a hell of a lot closer than they actually did. As the team progresses into the Overwatch League, I think history plays out as normal from this point forward. It's unclear that Rogue as an organization would have gotten an Overwatch League slot, so there's still a good chance that many of the same French players that would have been drafted over do so and get signed for the very first season. If not for Mickie joining the team when he did all those years ago, your 2018 Dallas Fuel lineup could have been as follows: Coco, Space, Carpe, Seagull, AKM, Dante, Chips High-End, Unco, and Harry Hook. From that point on, I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Does Dallas make the grand finals on the back of Carpe's skill? Do they win the league? How do they do in 2019? Leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear where you guys put this iteration of the Fuel against some of the fantastic teams we saw in the inaugural season. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out the description below for some more content, and I'll see you in the next video.